Hey everybody, today I'm talking about In the Hall of the Mountain King, which is a 2019 release board game designed by Jay Cormier and Graham Yarns. This one accommodates 2 to 5 players and takes around 90 minutes to play. Now this is a midweight Euro with quite a few components. As you can see, you've got this really big board in the centre of the table, which is double-sided, depending on the player count. You've got all these different statues dotted around semi-randomly at the start of the game. You have a starting place for each player. I've already built a little tunnel here for an example later. You've got all these points divided out at the bottom of the table. You've got a big pool of cards that you can potentially draft using this pyramid system, which I'll explain shortly. You've got these spell cards, you've got these big great halls, and you have your individual player boards as well, which is your kind of main method of gathering your resources. And on top of all that, you've got all your different resources. You've got these spell tokens, you've got wheelbarrows, you've got these hammers, and you've got a bunch of different polyomino style tiles, as well as coins and these different mineral tokens, which depict 3 different types of resources. So the idea of the game is that we're trying to get as many victory points as possible, and we're going to do that in a few different methods, such as building tunnels, such as discovering these statues and dragging these statues onto these platforms, with the idea of trying to get them into as far as into the heart of the volcano as possible, because the closer to the centre equals more points. So let's take a look about how the game actually plays out. So the first option you're going to get on your turn is to either use one of these workshops, which are these different squares here. Initially they are undiscovered, but as soon as you build a tunnel that touches one of these locations, you can choose one of the workshops that are available or dished out at the start of the game and allocate them to that spot. And then you're going to be able to use this kind of option here, which usually converts one good into another, and you can do that one time. In opposition to that, if you don't want to do that, you can choose to use one of these spell cards, and these spell cards are going to give you a kind of game-breaking options, and there's a big stack of these. And you're going to be able to use these by spending one of these spell resource tokens, and you're going to place one of them onto the token, onto the card, sorry, like so, which means that you can now use that ability either immediately or throughout the round. So, for example, this Hammer of Heroes says if you dig a tunnel this turn, you may clear any number of rubble spaces by spending a single hammer. Because as you can see here on the board, you've got some of these coarser stone areas, which are depicted by this symbol here. And in order to burrow through that type of stone, you're going to have to spend one of these hammer tokens for each square. But of course, that card will let me destroy as many of those coarse stone as I can with a single use. And these spell cards are quite interesting because as soon as somebody uses it for the 3rd time amongst all the players, then it's going to get replaced with a new one. So you can't just keep spamming the same card. So after the option of either using a workshop or using a spell card, you must choose one of the following 2 options. The first of which is to build a tunnel. So building a tunnel is pretty simple. You're going to have to spend a certain number of resources depending on the size of the tunnel you want to build. So let's take a look at this chart here. So for example, if I wanted to build a 3-sized tunnel, which are going to be determined by all these different 3-shaped polyominoes. You are going to choose one of them. You're going to spend an equal amount of resources. So let's say I spend these three stone tokens back into the pool, and then I can choose to extend my my network here, like so. So say, for example, I wanted to do this. I could, let's say I build onto here, like so, extending my network. And as you can see, if I ever build on top of another symbol like this coin here, I'm going to immediately add that to my resource supply, like so. So I've got another coin. And then you're going to look at the chart here to determine how many points you are going to get. So, for example, if I ever build a number 2 sized tunnel, then I'm never going to get any points. If I build a size 3, then depending on the amount of stone or the type of stone I spend, I'm going to get a number of points. So the normal stone is kind of more common and only gets you 3 points. The kind of rarer one, the darker stone, gets you 4 points, and the really rare one gets you 5 points. And that applies to all the different sizes of tunnels, and that scales up accordingly because the stone does get rarer and harder to come by depending on its type. Now, if I don't want to, or if I can't afford to build a tunnel, then I must recruit one of these trolls onto my individual player board. And to do that, you've got 3 different levels of troll here. The first level of troll is completely free, but they're not quite as good as the higher ones. Or if you want to go higher up the pyramid and get like a level 2 troll or even a level 3 troll, then you're going to have to spend a number of coins in order to get access to those. So say for example, I really wanted this troll here, then I can choose to spend 1 coin on this one and 1 coin on this one in order to get access to the one above it. So I'll take this one and add it to my player board, and then this space would be replaced by a new card. I would also get the platform that comes with that card, which can be quite important. And once I draft a new troll card, I'm going to add it to my pyramid of cards and place it on top of 2 adjacent ones below it. So, like so, I'd plug this one onto this like this, and I'd get all the resources showing on that card, like so. So I'd get 3 stone, and I'd get 2 of these wheelbarrow tokens, or these carts, and I'd put them on the matching symbols. And then everything below it that isn't showing or isn't covered up, I would also get that symbol as well. So I'd get another stone by adding it onto this symbol here. But as you can see, this one is already filled up and hasn't been used yet, so that one doesn't get replenished. Additionally, whenever you build a tunnel with one of these different circles in them, then you are going to have the option to build one of these platforms, which you already have in your supply, and place it on top of that circle like so. And whenever you do that, you are going to look at the chart at the bottom here and take a number of points depending on what type of rock that's in. Because you can see the board is divided into 5 different types of rock. You've got the dark grey, you've got the grey, you've got this reddish colour, and all the way into the yellow in the centre. And if you're the first to build a platform on that certain type of rock, you are going to take the matching point symbol at the bottom. So say for example, I built this colour here on the lighter grey, so I'll take a look at this chart and take the 4 points matching that type of statue. So once the mandatory phase of either building a tunnel or recruiting a troll is completed, you're going to have the option to build one of these great halls. Now these great halls are great if you have the ability to fit them into your network. So say for example, if I've carved out this big piece of rock into the mountain, and I'm going to have the option to take one of these great halls and I'm going to be able to put it on my network like so, covering up that many spaces. Now this is going to get me a number of points at the end of the game, so it's going to give me 6 points regardless if I complete the secondary option, which can give me a potential of 15 points, which relates to the next phase, which is when you're going to be able to spend these carts here, which are able to drag these statues around your network. So for each wagon you spend, or each cart you spend, you're going to be able to move it from tile to tile. So I could be 1 movement and then 2 movement onto this one like so. And if I ever place a statue onto that place in the Great Hall, then you're going to unlock the bigger points value. And that also applies to these different platforms, because let's say, for example, let's say I discovered this one earlier, and if I ever drag them onto the matching coloured platforms, then at the end of the game you're going to get a number of points depending on this track here. So again, depending on the type of rock it's into, if it's not on a platform, you're going to get this many points depending on how far into the centre of the mountain you are. But if it is on a platform, you're going to get double the amount of points. And that's basically how the game is going to play out. The game is going to come to a conclusion once somebody has completed their pyramid of troll cards. For example here, if they place another 2 here and 1 on top of that, that would be a complete pyramid. And then the end game would trigger, meaning that each player has 2 more rounds before the game finishes and final scores are counted up. So let's talk how I feel about In the Hall of the Mountain King. So first off, I suppose the thing I'll take away from this game more than anything, and probably the most unique thing about the game, is this resource system. This kind of cascading mechanism where you gain resources depending on what you build. So for example, if I built this troll here, not only am I going to fill up this one, but I'm also going to fill up everything below it. And that can create some really satisfying turns of gaining a bunch of resources very quickly. However, it's pretty thinky in the grand scope of things, because This is a game where you want to be as efficient as you can and not waste turns, because there actually aren't that many turns in the game, and you'll find your pyramid filling up pretty quickly. So you want to get as much as you can out of each of these placements. And what I mean by that is that you want to make sure that these cards are as empty as possible before you place a new troll. Otherwise, those movements are going to be going to waste. And that can be quite a big thing if you have a particularly, the rarer type of brick, for example. If I don't spend this one, then when I place that troll, I'm not going to get a new one, because they only got capacity to hold one type of each resource. So I think that's a really compelling decision, and managing your resources can be pretty taxing. And additionally, the scoring system is quite interesting in relation to this one, because you might just have a few kind of straggling pieces of rare rock, but if I don't build a tunnel bigger than 2, then I'm not going to get any points regardless of what type of rock it is. So I really do like that system. I think it creates a lot of depth into the game and can make you plan things out accordingly if you want to be as efficient as you can, because you will be wasting resources if you do not play this part of the game well. Additionally, I really enjoy these spell cards. I think this is a great part and a great addition to the game, not only because they add a lot of really fun abilities, great game-breaking abilities, as I mentioned, smashing through a bunch of rock. You can swap cards with more powerful cards. You've got ones like this that can activate workshops a number of times. Even ones like this where you can even activate any troll in the pyramid and just get that many resources into your immediate supply. And these are really powerful, which means that you do want a steady supply of these gem tokens. And I also love that it's a common commodity to be able to use. So if there's a particularly strong one that people want to get the most out of, then as soon as that third token's on it, it's going to go. So I love the way this is public information and available to everybody, rather than just having a secret power to yourself that you can really abuse. So I think that's a great system, and really does fit my kind of taste in Euro-style games, because I love the way that this is just accessible to everybody. And on top of that, there's a bunch of these as well, so you've got loads of scope for replayability there. The actual method in which you recruit your trolls in the first place is interesting, because you can always take the lower row for free, and of course they're not going to be as good as the higher rows, but I love incentive building in general in board games, and this game does a great job of that. And if you want to get the really valuable top row cards, then you're going to have to spend a bunch of coins. If, for example, we're going to have to spend all 3 of these bottom rows, the 2 middle rows, in order to get to the top card here, which again, really powerful and worth having, and potentially worth all those coins you're going to spend. But of course, the following players can choose to take one of these cards at the bottom in order to get the coins on that as well as the card itself. So I love incentive building, and this game does a fantastic job of that. In general, I tend to like or enjoy polyomino games, and this game certainly has that, as you're carving out these pathways in the mountain. But I love the additional wrinkles of gameplay that you need to consider, such as being able to get through this course of stone by having the hammers in your supply, and even the fact that in the centre of the volcano is, of course, where the points are going to be had. But on the outer rim, you've got all the resources that you can gain access to. So you've got to weigh up that decision of whether am I going to stay on the outer row and mine all these resources, or am I going to go straight to the middle and try to drag the statues that way? And that statue dragging as well is a wrinkle I tend to enjoy, because I tend to like pick up and deliver games, and the fact that you have to gain access to these platforms in the first place and then spend those wagon tokens in order to drag them onto their relative platforms, it's just an interesting decision and a nice new take on pick up and deliver. I also like the fact that you can optionally choose to build these thick tunnels in order to build these great halls in, which can give you another option and a good way to gain a lot of points. But of course, you're going to have to consider the pathways to drag the statues to them to get the big bulk of points. So loads of things to decide here. I think the pacing in this game is fantastic. Yes, it is going to take around 90 minutes, but it feels like a fast 90 minutes because the game is triggered by how fast people build these trolls, and the game end is going to start triggering once someone has completed that pyramid. And the fact that the game is just boiled down into 4 very simple phases, the option of building or using a workshop or casting a spell, the mandatory option of having to recruit a troll or dig a tunnel, and then the 2 optional phases of either dedicating a great hall or moving a statue. And most of the time you're not going to do all of these. You might just take 1 or even 2 of the 4 options. So in general, the turn phases are going to go extremely quickly, and it isn't a game there where when it's not your turn it's going to be boring. It's just nice, quick, snappy turns, and you can really find yourself being engaged in this game and not losing yourself or being bored when it is another player's turn. The replayability is generally good because of the huge array of spell cards you can gain access to, and of course all the different trolls, because all the different levels have a bunch of cards and they're all going to be different from game to game. I would say that this part of the game is generally going to feel the same, but of course you have got the different options you can go to. As I said, are you going to focus on the Great Halls? Are you going to focus on dragging the statues into the centre or gaining the resources around the outside? So there are different paths you can follow, and I suppose that is going to almost synergize with the spell cards available to you, so depending on a certain strategy you want to take. But yeah, in general, I'm pretty happy with the replayability, and the interaction as well is going to play a part in that, because obviously with more players, people are going to be building tunnels, you're going to be fighting over real estate and trying to gain access to the best workshops, which is another cool thing about the game, is because if I ever built onto a workshop here, and my opponents can even choose to use that workshop as well, as long as we're not touching tunnels. So there is a nice amount of competition if you want to use these workshops to your advantage. And yeah, that fight for real estate, getting the best gems around the outside as well, is going to be a good part of the competition. And I suppose there's going to be some competition as well about how many people are going to use these spell cards before they vanish, and of course the available troll cards that you might want. So there's some passive interaction there, and some a bit more almost kind of scurrying to get the places that you want before other people do. But there's no direct smashing each other or anything like that. So generally I'm happy with the level of player interaction. From a production standpoint, I'm really happy with the way the game looks and it feels. All the statues are of a good wooden quality, they're nice and chunky pieces. The card quality is good, and I'm actually happy that they use these smaller cards because this is quite a sprawling game. The board is big, you've got the big troll pyramid, you've got all the great halls, you've got the spell cards, you've got all the different polyomino tiles, which normally I'd spread these out a bit more neatly. So as you can probably imagine, once all this is set up, especially when each player has their own pyramid of trolls as well, it is going to take up a lot of space, and you're going to need a big table to facilitate the game. But if you have got that, it's not going to be an issue. So again, I'm happy with the way that the cards are on the smaller scale of things. But yeah, from a visual standpoint, I'm happy with the way the game looks, and the production itself is good. The artwork, I think, is okay. It's not usually it's not my taste in general, but it's certainly well done. I can't really criticise it. It's more of a taste thing, and I know Kwanchai Moria is quite a revered artist, and people do like his style. So take that with a grain of salt in terms of me not being the biggest fan of the art style. So overall, there is so much to enjoy about in the Hall of the Mountain King. I love the feel of the game. It does feel like a pretty breezy game, and it has a real fun factor that a lot of midweight Euros don't tend to have. I suppose the spatial puzzle of mapping things out, the real tangible thematic ties in terms of mining things and breaking through the stone. I suppose the thing I take away more than anything is this resource system. This is absolutely fascinating, and I'm blown away with the way this works. Would love to really explore the depths of this and master how to work this one out. And this game, on the face of it, is a pretty simple game, broken down into 4 very simple, digestible phases, but the decision space behind these mechanisms is actually really deep and can leave you in some quite nasty conundrums. For example, and being efficient with your resources, knowing how to manage your time, because time does erode away really quickly in this game, and knowing if you've got enough turns in order to start a new master plan in terms of mining things out, maybe getting a new hall down, and actually having the resources to drag these statues around, to erect these platforms, etc. And all of this is just boiled down into a tight framework that you are going to have to be as efficient as you can, and to map out your turns accordingly. So I do like the way that, even though the game is relatively simple on the face of it, the decision space behind it certainly isn't as simple as it might first appear. Really, there is nothing I don't enjoy about this game, and I welcome so many of the additional things that just ramp up the Euro-ness of the game, such as the incentive building, the way you're going to gain these trolls, the incentive of not only getting the better resource cards, but getting the stands for the statues as well. Also, the spell cards add so much flavour to the game. And yeah, all of it just comes together in a lovely package that I'm really happy with. I find the game extremely satisfying from turn to turn, especially when you are activating your resources. And it doesn't have that slog and that tedious grind that a lot of resource management games have. This one just gives you a big smack in the face in terms of just putting a bunch of resources at your disposal, and I really enjoy that, and it has a real different pacing that a lot of these other types of games do. So this one certainly gets my shield of quality. Really enjoying this one at the moment, and if it does appeal to you, definitely check this one out because the fun factor is ramped up. So that concludes my thoughts on In the Hall of the Mountain King. If you have enjoyed the review, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.